So this week, Josh Allen plays the Baltimore Ravens and their high blitz rate team. Courtesy of PFF, we know that Josh Allen has more passing touchdowns, 19, and more passing yards, 1,850, than any other quarterback in the league versus the blitz. So this is going to be a terrible matchup for Baltimore, right? Let's thank PFF for all the counting they did. But to know if this is a truly bad matchup for Baltimore, you have to look into the context. And the context says something very different than the numbers. Now, the numbers are not arguable. He has the most passing touchdowns versus the blitz and the most passing yards versus the blitz of any quarterback in the league. So 1-for-1, he must be good versus the blitz. And this simply isn't true. And there's a reason behind this. And the big reason behind this is that if you look at the Jets, they blitz heavy. He was able to beat the Jets because, well, they're the Jets. You look at Miami in week 2. They kept getting hit with overs routes on trail man coverage when Miami blitzed. Those numbers push the totals up dramatically. He threw for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against Miami as one play killed them over and over and over. Against Seattle, Seattle decided to blitz like crazy as well, but they were playing 3 high boundary corners bailing, which means you eat hitches and hitches and hitches and hitches. San Francisco in the same scheme brought the blitzes, same result. They'd play a little bit more cover 2 behind their blitz, boundary windows, good night. And we've been saying all year, there are certain things you do versus Allen. And none of them include bailing the boundary corners. None of them include 1 high trail man coverage. None of them include a fire zone cover 2 behind your blitz. The numbers that Allen has piled up versus the blitz are due to the fact of the coverages behind the blitz. If you cover wrong, the blitz is irrelevant. So what are the things you do versus Josh Allen? Well, first, you play cloud. Does Baltimore play cloud? No, they do not. So that 3 high zone with the cover 2 corners underneath it and forcing everything to the middle on short checkdowns is not going to be a part of what Baltimore does. But there are 2 other things you do versus Josh Allen, and that's exactly who Baltimore is. You blitz off the right side, you send pressure. Believe it or not, despite the fact that he has piled up the numbers that he has against blitzes, you still want to blitz Josh Allen, specifically from the right side, because while he has worked at improving his off-platform mechanics when booting to the left, it's still nowhere near as good as when he goes to the right. But behind your blitz, you play man coverage. You play cover 2, man under, cover 1, man under. Don't try the 0 high stuff because they'll go max protect or they'll go to their boundary wide receiver screens and your tackling numbers get put against you. Baltimore won't go into a ton of 0 high. Most teams don't go into a ton of 0 high. Miami threw a couple 0 highs. They ended horribly. So on film, it says very clearly, do not go to 0 high. But you do send 5, you do send 6, you play a man with 1 high, 2 high behind it. Another thing you want to do versus Josh Allen is you want to put pressure at the line of scrimmage, and that's when you bail out into zone because you're giving him a false pre-snap read. This too is a staple of what Baltimore does, and this will show positive results against Buffalo. So while people are overreacting about a high blitz rate team, they're looking at this the same way as they looked at Miami, and that's not who Baltimore is. If Baltimore is anyone, they are more similar to Arizona and Pittsburgh. First off, in Arizona, Josh Allen put the ball in harm's way that should have been picked off 4 times. All of them hit the ground. But the real telling story is Pittsburgh. Now, Buffalo beat Pittsburgh 26-15, I believe, something in that range. Let's look at Pittsburgh. In the first half, Pittsburgh played the style that Baltimore typically plays. They sent 5, they sent 4, they played man, they had coverage behind it, everything that you want to play against Buffalo. And in the first half, Josh Allen was 10 of 23 for 76 yards and an interception. The one drive that they scored on, 3 points, included a blown tackle where two safeties didn't wrap up on Stephon Diggs and he made a man play and went and took another 15 to 20 yards, and a roughing the passer that wasn't a roughing the passer. That's how Buffalo scored their field goal in the first half. Now, if Buffalo sees this from Baltimore, they do have an answer. They will chip block with tight ends, chip block with running backs, slip them out, try and get some short little outlets underneath the pressure, get Allen moving, and get the ball out. This is what you saw Dabble check to coming out of halftime in Pittsburgh. The first drive of the second half, Baltimore moved the ball down the field. Now, granted, it took two corners falling down on their wide receiver, both times on Stephon Diggs. I think this is a good time to point out that Pittsburgh's best cornerback, Joe Hayden, didn't play in that game. Marlon Humphrey will play this week. But even if Baltimore does all the right things, Buffalo isn't dead in the water. It just isn't going to be easy at all. Though every drive is going to be a struggle. And that's what you saw on that touchdown drive. They got it down the field. It took a lot of plays, a lot of time, and it was hard to manage it down the field. A couple nice plays where the corner fell down in their favor ended up putting the ball in the end zone. But what happened next is the most fascinating part of that game. In the first half, Pittsburgh played a lot of man and alternated blitzes. 3 points, 10 of 23, 76 yards and an interception. In the second half, Buffalo altered. And Buffalo played that check down, quick hitting passing game and moved the ball in small pieces down the field and scored the touchdown. Pittsburgh at that time had already started amping up their blitz trying to get home. And part of the success on the Buffalo drive was getting Beasley and getting Knox out into the linebackers of Pittsburgh. Poor coverage linebackers, and that's a winning matchup for Buffalo every single time. So when Pittsburgh sent more, it got a little bit worse. But then the change happened, because at 16-7, Buffalo got the ball back with 58 yards to go to the end zone. What did Pittsburgh do? They panicked. They went out of their man coverage. They went strictly into zone. 4 plays. First play, 4-man pressure. Zone, Diggs gets a chunk play in the middle. There was 1 run play on the drive, which netted a yard. Next time, 6-man pressure. Zone behind it, another chunk play. And then the third, 4-man pressure, cover 2, boundary window touchdown. You don't play zone. You do not play zone. So where Baltimore sits in this game is ideal. They like to bring pressure off the edges, taking Mitch Morse out of the equation. They like to show blitz and bail into zone to give those false pre-snap reads, and they love to play man. And you can look at it and say, well, if they play man, then Josh Allen will run. That's not the biggest threat. And if they play man, then Stephon Diggs is going to beat Marlon Humphrey. Yeah, but Marlon Humphrey is also very good, and that's why you have him. Diggs will win some, so will Marlon Humphrey. So all Baltimore has to do in this game is hold on to their identity. And if they watched Pittsburgh, they'll see that if you give up your identity, it only gets worse. Pittsburgh proved that on their film. So for all the numbers out there that say Josh Allen's great against the blitz, Josh Allen puts up great stats, great numbers, touchdowns, yada, yada. Josh Allen's a scary runner. It's not like Lamar, Kyler, or Deshaun, but he can run. Great. I want Josh Allen to try and run this game 18 times because his ball security is an issue. And that's not the way I'm scared of Buffalo. I'm scared of Buffalo on letting Josh Allen's arm work me over. So what Baltimore has to do in this game to hold their head up high at the end of the day is to be themselves and to never waver. Even if Dabble alters to them, still run your best stuff, which is blitzing off the edges, which is showing blitz and bailing into zone, which is man coverage, 1 high or 2 high behind it, depending on how many you send. Baltimore's positioned perfectly for this matchup, just as long as they don't buy into numbers that completely lack context. This is the most interesting game of the weekend. We are going to be covering both sides, offense versus defense. Buffalo, we just covered. Baltimore's going to be on another video. Make sure you go down below, hit subscribe, ring the bell so that you get all our notifications. Love you guys. We need you. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the other side.